YouTube, what did YouTube Down on News TV? I am Dre, and I know there's been a lot of talk in the news media about Project 2025. I have a little understanding of what it is, how some type of formula to shape the future of the policies that'll be put in place. And I guess the Heritage Foundation is hoping that if President Trump, President Trump gets reelected, he'll push this agenda. So we're gonna see what the fuss is about this evening. Try to better understand why Democrats are so worried and pushing this message in the media. So I ran across a video titled "What is Project 2025?" Let's explain 5 criticisms of 2025, and the video is coming from Illustrate to Educate, and I had to do the illustrative version of this video because, as Jesse Lee Peterson would say, I'm black and slow, so I need you to dumb it down for me. So let's check it out together.
Have you heard about Project 2025? Hey, it's Dan Zimmerman and welcome back to Illustrate to Educate. In this video, we'll dive into everything you need to know about Project 2025, including 5 criticisms. Remember, if you disagree with Project 2025 or its criticisms, please don't dislike the video, but instead respectfully comment your thoughts below. Project 2025, led by the Heritage Foundation, is a comprehensive initiative designed to prepare for a potential conservative administration starting in January 2025. It is structured around 4 main pillars: policy development, personnel recruitment, training, and strategic planning for the early days of the new administration. Here's a more detailed breakdown of each component. First, let's look at the policy agenda. The Conservative Promise is a detailed policy guide that provides specific recommendations for governing major federal agencies. The guide encompasses conservative solutions to various issues, including economic policies, healthcare, education, and national security. It is intended to serve as a blueprint for the next conservative administration, ensuring that key conservative values and strategies are implemented effectively from the outset. The second pillar is the personnel database. Project 2025 includes a comprehensive personnel database aimed at identifying and vetting potential appointees for various positions within the federal government. This database seeks to ensure that a future conservative administration has a pool of qualified, ideologically aligned individuals ready to fill key roles. The recruitment efforts span across different sectors and backgrounds, targeting experienced professionals who can execute the administration's agenda efficiently. The third part is the training through the Presidential Administration Academy. To prepare the identified personnel for their roles, Project 2025 has established the Presidential Administration Academy. This academy offers a range of training programs including workshops, seminars, online courses, and mentorship from former administration officials. The training is designed to equip future administrators with the necessary skills and knowledge to implement conservative policies effectively. Fourth is the 180-Day Playbook. The 180-Day Playbook is a strategic document outlining the immediate actions to be taken by the new administration within the first 180 days. This playbook is crafted to enable swift policy reversals and the implementation of conservative priorities, ensuring a smooth and impactful start. It includes specific actions for various departments and agencies, focusing on undoing the policies of the previous administration and setting the stage for long-term conservative governance.
With that part being said about the undoing of the policies, and earlier they spoke about reorganizing the administration that's coming in. I'm pretty sure Trump was one of the few presidents that actually did not get rid of the full cabinet and replace it with his own type of people. From what I remember, I believe the Obama administration replaced almost everybody from the previous George W. Bush administration and put his own people in. And I know for sure Bill Clinton, he was one of the guys that got rid of everybody in the previous administration and put his own people in. And as far as policies, from what I've read, the current administration did a full 180 on the former president's policies, President Trump's policies, and basically the same thing that's been going on since time.
Now let's talk about the coalition and organizational structure. Project 2025 is supported by a coalition of over 100 conservative organizations, including think tanks, advocacy groups, and academic institutions. This broad coalition brings together diverse expertise and resources to support the project's goals. Notable participants include former officials from the Trump administration who contribute their experience and insights to the project. There are specific policy focus areas in Project 2025. Project 2025 proposes significant changes to federal policies on reproductive health. These include removing references to abortion from federal laws and regulations, reversing the approval of abortion pills, and defunding clinics that provide abortion or contraception services. The initiative also aims to reinstate the Comstock Act to ban mail-order abortions and reshape Medicaid to avoid funding reproductive health care services that include abortion. Another focus area is cultural and social issues. The project emphasizes the restoration of traditional family values and religious principles. This includes opposing policies perceived as supporting cultural Marxism and promoting a pro-life agenda. It advocates for policies that support the nuclear family, religious liberty, and traditional gender roles. There's also the leadership of Project 2025, which is directed by Paul Dans, a former chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management during the Trump administration, with Spencer Sherteen.
That's one thing I really never understood when it came to Black Lives Matter, but I guess I'm not supposed to understand it because I would say I think pretty logically that a lot of the abortion clinics, from what I've researched and looked at, are mainly placed, especially in the big cities and more urban areas. And if I'm not mistaken, what was her name? Margaret Sanger? The founder of Planned Parenthood, how she spoke about African Americans or blacks, however you want to call it, are weeds and need to be eradicated, basically. But yet, I don't know. It's mind-boggling sometimes. But I don't know. I have a 7-year-old son, and I know I didn't meet him before. Well, while he was in his mom's stomach, but I mean, they say kids could pick up on a lot of things while they're in their mom's stomach, being nurtured and developing. But I couldn't imagine life without my son on this earth. And I don't see how, well, it's my opinion, I don't see how people just willingly go to abortion clinics and delete their child, their sperm, or their procreation. Me and my ex-wife used to have this conversation when we had our son about, well, we'd have little debates when it came to abortion because she thought that it was a woman's right. And I would ask her, well, now that you know our son, brought him into this world, would you would like to have had an abortion if you had the choice? And she says no, obviously, but that's just in retrospect. But yeah, once you see that child, even knowing that the baby's in the stomach, is I don't see how somebody could just, yeah, I want to get rid of this child. But when I used to work in the oil field, I knew some guys that would actually, well, it was just this one in particular. He would brag about how the abortion clinic up there, where we're located, knew him and his girl by name as soon as they walk in. And he would laugh about it, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I didn't say nothing to him personally, but I was just like, dang, man, that's pretty wild. Because I just think about what if my parents would have had an abortion when it came to me. And my parents came up in some rough times, honestly, but they ended up making a good life for themselves and me and my brothers. But I don't know, I didn't mean to steer away a little bit, but let's get back into the video.
Serving as associate director. Both bring extensive experience from their previous roles in government, contributing to the strategic planning and execution of the project. So what are the criticisms of Project 2025? Project 2025 has sparked significant criticism from various sources. Critics argue that the project embodies a comprehensive plan to centralize executive power, erode democratic norms, and enforce a far-right agenda on American governance and society. Let's take a look at 5 specific criticisms in more detail. First is the centralization of executive power. One major criticism is that Project 2025 seeks to expand presidential control over the federal bureaucracy. The plan includes reviving the Schedule F classification, which would allow the president to replace thousands of civil service employees with political appointees loyal to the administration. Critics argue this would undermine the nonpartisan nature of the civil service and politicize federal agencies, making them tools of the executive branch rather than independent entities.
Presidential control over the federal bureaucracies. I'm pretty sure that goes on nowadays. It's just not widely advertised. But I was going to say something, but never mind. We'll just continue.
Second is the attack on democratic institutions. Critics highlight that Project 2025's blueprint includes proposals to dismantle or weaken key democratic institutions. This includes plans to defund the Department of Justice and dismantle the FBI and other agencies that could act as checks on presidential power. Such moves are seen as efforts.
Now, this part, wasn't it more so of Democrats that wanted to defund the police when Trump was in office? And just taking a step back retrospectively, I wasn't born in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s. I'm an 80s baby, but I don't want to say I'm that old, but I'm an 80s baby. And a little bit about the Black Panther Party and how they're infiltrated with the COINTELPRO and dismantled their movement. And just a bunch of things that was done to black leaders back in the 50s, MLK, Malcolm X. I mean, it was in the movies that the FBI was tapping their phones, and they possibly wanted to. This is just me thinking outside the box right now, but if they wanted to, they probably could have prevented their deletions off the planet Earth. So, especially the words of I guess he was the founder, J. Edgar Hoover. of the FBI when it came to black people. You would think that blacks would be more opposed to, well, not opposed to, but more on the side of Trump when he said he wanted to restructure the FBI and things of that nature, especially when they talk about all the time the injustices that regular police do to black citizens across the country. But you would think even though the FBI is, I would say, a hierarchy when it comes to policing, which it really is, that blacks would be just as motivated to want to get some reorganization and structure with the FBI, knowing the history of it when it came to our black leaders. But let's continue on.
To undermine the rule of law and enable the executive branch to operate with little oversight or accountability. Third, the project also faces criticism for its potential use of government power to target political opponents and critics. There are fears that it would enable the executive to pursue legal action against political adversaries and critical media outlets, drawing parallels to authoritarian regimes where dissent is suppressed through state mechanisms. The fourth criticism is the
With that, all I gotta say that comes to mind is Julian Assange. I know he was his own investigative journalist, but unfortunately, I guess he upset a lot of people, some powerful people, and they always talk about whistleblowers are safe, but I don't know. That's a whole another topic.
Social and cultural agenda. Project 2025's policy agenda includes strong positions on social issues, promoting conservative values that critics argue could roll back rights and protections for various groups. The document outlines plans to restrict LGBTQ+ rights, enforce strict anti-abortion measures, and integrate Christian nationalist principles into government policy. This agenda has raised concerns about the erosion of civil liberties.
If I'm not mistaken, our country was founded based on Christian principles. And I would say, overall, I don't like the thought of forcing religion on people, but at the same time, if you go look throughout history, all of the Christian, I'm not sure if they would be considered conservative, but a lot of the Christian cultures, they flourish a lot more than their neighboring countries would. Can't think of any off the top of my head, but just based off the Christian Crusades, if you go back and do a timeline of where they had their crusades at, fighting against, this might be controversial, but the Muslims that were conquering, and they decided to have their own revolution. But if you go throughout the history of it, or where the Christian Crusades began and where they ultimately ended, a lot of those countries still to this day is flourishing pretty well in comparison to other countries.
And the imposition of a particular religious and ideological framework on the entire nation. Lastly is the environmental and climate policy rollbacks. The project's stance on environmental regulations is contentious. It proposes significant rollbacks of climate policies which critics argue would have detrimental effects on efforts to combat climate change and protect the environment. This aspect of the plan is seen as catering to business interests at the expense of long-term
I recall in elementary school, I know they talk about climate change a lot, but the earth, it's kind of like your body. If you injure yourself, have a wound or something, give it time, it'll heal and replenish itself. I want to say I learned that in school about the earth as well. Like when you diminish natural resources, if you give it time, let it settle, or leave that area alone, it'll replenish itself. And I'm thinking, maybe I was daydreaming when I heard that, but I'm pretty sure that's what they said when I was in elementary school, that the earth has the power to recreate natural resources, and that's why a lot of people say like oil, minerals, and things like that that keep our world going is God-given, basically, because it'll eventually replenish itself even if you deplete it in some cases. But they make it seem like it's the everyday ordinary person that is doing all these horrible things to the earth, when it's really, I would say, these big corporations, the people with money that has finances to go destroy a whole rainforest and dig for minerals and things of that nature. But I don't know, maybe that's just me.
Ecological sustainability. Did you find this video about Project 2025 to be helpful? Remember not to dislike the video, but rather like the video, comment, and subscribe to support more simple and objective videos on topics that matter. If you liked this video,
I did like that video. It's simple, and it explained pretty well. Thank you, Illustrate to Educate. I like videos like that. There's this one guy that does like all the histories. He'll do all the little cartoon characters and all that stuff, and like speaking about Napoleonic Wars and things of that nature. They're pretty interesting and cool. But where was I gonna say or go with this afterwards? I had something else to say. But well, anyway, there you go. Project 2025 for people that are slow, including myself. And if you don't want to download the PDF to actually dig inside, which I will do eventually, one day when I get some more free time. But I heard D.L. Hughley speak about Project 2025. Oh yeah, that's where I was gonna go with it. But D.L. Hughley, he was talking about Project 2025 and telling his audience why they should be so afraid of it. He may be right, he may not, I don't know. We'll see in the future. But he was saying take a good look at the state of Florida as being, I guess, a future projection of what 2025 will look like. And he went on to talk about, what did he talk about? With the LGBTQ rights, the banning of books, which they're talking about the books that they don't think kids should be exposed to in a school, like what, I don't want to get into too much detail about it, but what else did he say that really struck my mind? He said the LGBTQ. Oh yeah, the book bannings and DEI when it comes to race and history. And what made me really think about it was I was reading one of my nephew's social studies book, and they was talking about how the Europeans came over to America and conquered the Native Americans for the most part, but the way they explained it in the book was totally different from how I was taught in high school and elementary. But this is I don't know why. I guess it's too late in the evening and I just get brain fart. I work all day and go to the gym, but I can't think anymore. But anyway, the way they were explaining it in the social studies book from my nephew, who's in school right now, they made it seem like the Native Americans were all friendly, all this, all that. Everybody was getting along, and these evil Europeans came over and just started raping, pillaging, and killing and all that stuff. But the main thing I want to get out of it was when I was in high school, they spoke about some of the natives being friendly to the Europeans and bringing them in and sheltering them and helping them out. But they didn't really go into details well. Of course, it'd be a longer course if they did, but when I was in school, they was talking about how a lot of the Native Americans were warring, and they really don't talk about how back in those days is basically conquer or be conquered. And my nephew's social studies book just made it seem like everybody was getting along all perfect. Everybody was friends and doing their Native American dances, having fun all the time, and these evil Europeans came over and just slaughtered them when a lot of the Native Americans were at war with other tribes and basically divide and conquer. That's one of the reasons how the Europeans were able to win, and plus they had more powerful weaponry. But yeah, that's another day, another story for another day. My brain is shot. It's late in the evening over here, but Down Home News TV, I'm Dre. Hopefully y'all liked the video. Excuse me.